Well, folks, welcome back. Another great Wednesday, final one of the month of May. Hopefully you all have been getting a chance to do some yard work outside, some housework, all that fun stuff, because the weather finally seems like it's starting to turn around. Next week might be better in summer, but hey, it's Erie. Mother Nature does not call summer in Erie until June. You all know that. Anyway, good to have you all in. Welcome into the Gem City Sports Podcast Network, brought to you by our friends at Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more info on Rebich Investments, you can head over to the website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number during normal business hours, 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. We got a fun episode for you tonight. In a few minutes' time, maybe more like 15, 20 minutes, but that's okay. Time is a relevant thing around this neck of the woods. We're going to be giving out some OTA NFL playoff predictions. Nick Artman and I are going to attempt at the beginning of the true non-playing season to determine which teams in the AFC and NFC we think are going to make the postseason, and if we think the Steelers, Bills, and or Browns are all going to make it. So let's find out. We're going to find that out in just a few minutes. But we begin tonight's episode with Mr. Nick Artman joining us tonight. And Nick, we said prior to the episode off air that we had a lot we wanted to get into, but I think it's only fair and only appropriate that we let you start with the floor tonight. But before we get to that, I will say it's good to see you. I know that you've had a busy night with your son's T-ball game. Did they get the W tonight, or did they even keep score?
Listen, first off, you mentioned how baseball weather, right? This McLean Little League does not stop for weather. It was constant rain tonight. Those little kids were out there having a blast. No, they do not keep score. Everybody hits per inning, and then the last batter gets an inside the park home run. All the throws are to first on defense. But I gotta say, I love watching T-ball because the chaos is so much fun. Those little kids have no idea what's going on. Throwing plays from right field to third base. They're hitting as best they can and not running on the bag, and people are lapping people around home. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
You know what the great thing is, though? If everybody doesn't know what they're doing, that means that everybody does know what they're doing, right? Because if no one knows the rules,
I like your logic.
There are no rules.
Right.
I will say, so I was in Edinburgh over the Memorial Day holiday, and by the way, I'm still waiting for those extra ribs that you have.
Oh, there's none left. There was no extra.
You know my address. I'm sure you made a couple extra and aren't telling me. But we were driving into Edinburgh over the Memorial Day weekend, and I don't know if it was on Sunday or Monday, I don't remember. We drove by the McLean Little League fields by the elementary school.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I don't know if you were there or you had a game or whatnot. The Little League parking lot was packed. The street parking down the side of the road was packed. The Edinburgh Elementary School parking lot was packed. What were they running? I mean, I was in tournaments of those fields all the time. I don't think I've ever seen that many cars for a tournament on Memorial Day weekend in my life.
Well, that's exactly what it was. It was a Memorial Day tournament. It was not like McLean Little League, but they hosted a tournament at the fields, which is awesome. They've done a ton of work to those fields. Shout out to the team from McLean Little League. But that's exactly what it was. I live in the neighborhood across the street. There were literally cars parked on the side of the street in my neighborhood, walking across the street because the parking was absolutely insane. So, yeah, no, it was huge. There were people everywhere all weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Hey, if I were you, next time there's a tournament, I would put a parking $10 sign out in my yard. Do it like the Bills fans do in Orchard Park, and just start lining cars up in the driveway and the grass. Hey, come on in my backyard beyond the fence, $10. I
like that. I'm going to pull some neighbors, and we're just going to park lawn chairs at the end of the drive.
You know what? If you get everyone in your neighborhood to do it, you come with a collective pot of money. Maybe at the end of all this, you guys won't have to work for a few months because it's going to be a gold rush for the entire summer.
I like it.
Oh, man, it was just crazy busy to see. But hopefully everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. If you missed our show, Flagship City Sports Talk, on Monday, go back, check it out. Nick and Paul doing a great job, as well as Hallie Parker, our new digital content intern who's on with us tonight. She'll be working some behind-the-scenes things this evening. Speaking of tournaments, we left you on our network on Monday morning with talking about some predictions, giving some thoughts as to how the week would go. And, of course, we see the results come out of the District 10 Baseball Softball Championships. That's where I want to start. more specifically, that's where I'd like Nick Artman to start. Because, my friend, you made some very poignant predictions on the Monday show. And, sometimes you are correct. And I give you the benefit of the doubt. Monday was not necessarily so I leave the floor to you first. Let's start it with this. Give us the game or the games that were most intriguing, maybe surprising, maybe something you want to dive in more into from Monday's District 10 Baseball Softball Championship day.
Listen, after picking the Browns to win the AFC North last year, my predictions can only go up.
I forgot about that.
my
well,
predictions...
you have a chance to redeem yourself on that later in the show.
Oh, no. Yes, we'll get to that. I have two apologies, and we'll start on the baseball side of things, and we'll do baseball, and then we'll get into softball. But my first apology tonight is to the McDowell baseball team. I said on Monday, and thankfully Hallie didn't go back and pull the clip for us for this, because for baseball, we looked at McDowell baseball and softball, and I said which team had a better chance of winning. I went with Gabby DeLuca and the softball team. Unfortunately, they lost, but the apology is to the baseball team, because I was afraid that they did not have the bats to keep up with State College. Mm-hmm. And I was wrong. We predicted Evan Stranko to be dominant, and he was. 7 strikeouts, 3 hits, 74 pitches in a complete game win. But I didn't know that they would have the bats. And listen, the bats showed up. Mason McCulloch smashed a 3-run homer after falling behind 0-2. Colton Orlando had an RBI. Calvin Hiltebeitel had an RBI single. So, McDowell pulled off the win, 5-1, advanced to the face WPIAL champion Seneca Valley in the PIAA first round.
First and foremost, Evan Stranko is a stud. We saw this last year. He wasn't the number one pitcher that McDowell had by any stretch of the imagination, but he was still a very big factor on the hill. I will say the one thing out of this game that was most impressive to me, because I think in the past, and not knowing the stats off the top of my head, but having seen the games that McDowell has played in the sub-regional, the one thing that they have struggled with a lot is striking out. They get to WPIAL pitching, and State College is not a WPIAL team, but you play these teams outside of Erie County. And what I saw, at least with McDowell, is the biggest problem is you get quickly in the hole 0-2, and then you are sitting curveball, and that doesn't necessarily happen a lot when you get pitchers outside of the, they know how to work their zones, is what I'm saying. Yeah. So the fact that McDowell only struck out 4 times as a team yesterday was huge. I think that that's something that if they keep that up going, and again, they're going to have a really tough road in the state tournament. There's no question about that. They probably play, you could argue, in the hardest bracket without question, and it's not just because it's the highest class. But I do think if you're that Trojan team and you look at the way your offense was able to put the ball in play, that's a positive sign. Because you're going to be in a position where put the ball in play, see what happens. You get in the postseason, teams are going to make errors. There's no question about that. But no, it's a good play on your part to give McDowell the credit for their offense, because they scored when they had the ability to score and they were in a position to score, and they also didn't put themselves out of chances with the strikeouts, with only having 4.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. I mean, Stranko, and you're right. I mean, Stranko led the team this year with 57 strikeouts, which is a lot, and Ethan Bechtold threw 40. But, I mean, over the course of a season in a D-10, when you have that dominant pitcher, they're usually up, closer to that 70, 80 strikeouts in the season is a great season. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Stranko had a good year. But you're right. The pitching's been solid in terms of keeping low ERAs. Stranko at 1.39, Bechtold at 1.63, Justin Laird at 1.25. So, they have some guys that can throw the ball, but they're working the rotation. They're not necessarily blowing by people with the strikeouts. And, like I said, we talked about Mason McCulloch. He was batting .288 this year in 52 at-bats. Not necessarily crushing it, right? I mean, still a good average overall. But, I mean, they showed up, like I said, in a game that they absolutely – I mean, of course, it's playoffs. Everybody needs to win. They need to win this game. But, they proved me wrong and came out hot.
And look, McDowell's going to get Seneca Valley based on the WPIAL bracket in the 6A playoffs. They were the 3-seed Seneca Valley in the WPIAL, and their offense hasn't been that impressive either. They had 4-4-1 in their 3 games in the WPIAL postseason. So, look – if your pitching can stay consistent, you score runs when you have to. 6A, you don't see the crazy high-scoring games typically like you do in lower classifications. So give credit to McDowell. They got it done when they needed to get it done, and now they get a chance to play in the state tournament and get a chance to go for the quarterfinals. So that's one apology, Nick. But I, by the tone of your voice, I hear there's multiple apologies.
Yeah. All right, let's jump over to softball. So the other apology I need to dole out is to Sharon. And this was... I don't know. Maybe I was still riding the Michaela Presser-Palmer high of, watching the Northwestern girls basketball team.
Sure.
But the Northwestern softball team had a great year this year,
Yeah.
They still won or took a share of the Region 4 lead. They were 15-4. They're scoring runs, 9 runs a game. So I was buying into the hype. I was excited, and they played a great game. Unfortunately, a couple errors, I think, cost them this game. But on the other side of this, and you touched on this on Monday, Maddie Vogan is incredible.
She's almost unhittable.
11 strikeouts, 2 hits, with 1 run. But she's now at 499 career strikeouts. That's crazy to me to think that you can be at that level in high school. And unfortunately, it just proved to be too much. Delaney Bayer delivered a clutch 2 RBI double from the 7th spot. Had been leading off, from what I understand, a lot of this year. Claire Bowden had an RBI. Marley Bandrett and Mary Claire Brown were also key contributors in this one. So Sharon repeats as champs. I'm sorry I doubted you. They head to the tournament as well.
Yeah, the Bundrant sisters, last year we saw Maya play a really big role in Sharon's run to the semifinal in states when they lost to Harbor Creek, and we knew she'd be coming back. Her sister, I believe, coming up this year, being a freshman, she's been a big part of the lineup. They just have a lot of depth to Sharon. Credit, though, to Northwestern. I mean, this is a team, again, when you look at the way that they have been able to not just stay in games, but keep teams far down on the scoreboard. I really got to give them credit for the way that they've been able to play. And look, this is a situation where I think as we move a little bit further through the year, I think you're going to start to see, in a lot of ways, teams really factor in how good their pitching is. And the District 10 committee really factor in how good your pitching and defense are in the tournament. So, again, Northwestern, it's not quite over for them yet. They're going to, based on the bracket, and again, I apologize, I haven't looked so much into this. Northwestern's going to get an opportunity to potentially make it to the state tournament. So we'll keep you posted on that. And, again, regardless of how it works out for the Wildcats, what an incredible season. And Sharon, the way they ended last year, they would love nothing more than to get to the state championship game, and I think as long as Maddie Vogan's throwing well, they have a really great opportunity. Nick, you mentioned 2 games this week. I think there's a couple of more I want to mention as well when it comes to championship games. The first thing I will say is this. When we came into Monday morning and we talked about teams that could potentially come up with some upsets, I'm looking at the baseball side. The 2 games that I thought could possibly be games where the lower seed would win would be Fairview and Harbor Creek. Number 1, I want to give a shout out to Titusville. First District 10 championship. Started off very, very slow. Can I just say the Rockets offense is one of those offenses where, and we saw this with especially firsthand on Monday, Fairview's pitching is dominant. They use their top 3 guys, Benford, Campoli, Sklensky, all through in the game on Monday. But all it takes for this Rocket team is 1 inning. And the way the game was going, through 4, I'm following the game, and I got the feeling, okay, this is another one of those classic Fairview games where you're going to get to a 2-1 game late in innings, or let's even say Titusville levels the game at 2 in the 5th inning. And Fairview's going to find a way to string together 2 or 3 hits at the bottom of the lineup, turn the lineup card over, and somebody's going to find a way to get a bloop single in the right field to make it 3-2, and that's the way the game's going to end. Yeah. Titusville comes out, and that 5-run 4th inning, I'll tell you what. It's hard in the state playoffs to be a boom or bust offense, and I'm not saying that Titusville is boom or bust, but, man, they are capable at any time of putting together a really crooked number. And if it continues that way, they have a chance to make some noise, I feel, in the state playoffs.
No, I think that's a fair statement because they have a couple guys that can hit, right? Jackson Koval, which we've talked about on Monday, we hyped him up as well, had 2 RBIs in this game. Brett Schmidt had 2 RBIs in this game. Hunter Obert had 2 RBIs in this game. So when you can get that kind of support from your lineup, yeah, of course you're going to be able to put that through. Jackson Koval, coming in the last inning to not take the save, but to seal the deal, also can pitch as well through a strikeout to close out the game. So no, I don't think that's wrong at all. I think Titusville is a sneaky pick in the state tournament this year.
And I think, too, for the Rockets, and just the consistency that they've had on offense, I really think you have to give credit to, for me, the guys that aren't Jackson Koval. Hunter Obert, for me, was a really big component in this game. Cameron Mong had a couple of strong innings. The one thing that I think Titusville will struggle with maybe in the state tournament could be their pitching. I think that's the one thing that could be a little bit of an issue. But when you have the offense to be able to back it up, that doesn't necessarily really matter much. And the nice thing for Titusville now is they're going to get the 4th seed out of the WPIAL based on these state playoff brackets. WPIAL bracket was officially ended with their championship game just a couple of hours ago. 4th seed is Mohawk. And I will tell you, Mohawk was the second. It was the 11th seed, I believe. I'm looking at the bracket right now. There were, and of course, this is the classic WPIAL bracket, who has about 1 million teams. There were 18 teams who entered the WPIAL 3A bracket. So I will say that Titusville does, in my view at least, have a decent shot to be able to get to the second round of the postseason. And if that happens, you're into the quarterfinals. Who knows? So big shout out to Titusville. I really like the way that they played this game and didn't panic at how good Fairview's pitching was keeping them in check for the first 3 innings or so. And then again, congratulations to Cathedral Prep. Harbor Creek, I really thought, stayed with Prep for 4 or 5 innings. And then it was just a couple of little, I don't want to say dinky hits, but just odd plays that eventually did Harbor Creek in. But we talked about all season long how the Ramblers were struggling, right? They were down in the region at one point as low as 4th. And yet here they are as Class 4A baseball champions in District 10. It just doesn't really seem to matter. They've won more than 20 of these things, Nick. And I'll tell you what, experience plays a factor. And Prep's a young team relatively this year. They lost a lot of their lineup from last season. Doesn't really seem to matter that much.
Yeah. Per Tom Reisenweber from Go Area, this is their 25th D-10 title, first under Coach Frank Loria, which I think this is Coach Loria's first year, if I'm remembering that correctly. And this is their 10th straight district title. That's insane. I mean, that level of consistency. Oh, for a down year, they can still win the D10 title. Yeah, hats off to Cathedral Prep this year as well.
So now we sit with Prep as District 10 champions, Titusville as District 10 champions. I also think, too, in looking at, not going to really go over Cochranton and West Middlesex. We don't tend to look at those teams as much. Sure. But also, shout out to Mercyhurst Prep, who pitches 2 shutouts in the semifinals and the finals. It was funny. On Saturday, I'm sitting on my couch. I get a text from Randy Durkowski, and he said, "You were right. Those semifinal games were crazy." And I said this. I've been harping on the 2A bracket so much in District 10 baseball.
I know.
Just because of the talent level that these last 4 teams had. We talked about the combined region record. I really thought Sagertown had a legitimate shot to go far in the state tournament if they would have made it. They didn't even get out of the District 10 semifinals, and consequently they don't make the tournament. Greenville's going to make the state tournament here, and I don't think second place is a bad thing to be upset about if you're the Greenville Trojans in the way that this bracket was good. Mercyhurst Prep had to win a 1-0 game over Lakeview. I think that's going to suit them very, very well when they get to the state tournament. And then this game against Greenville, Hunter Cray didn't have to throw. They still pitch a shutout. So I will tell you, when you have a 1-2 combo with Cray and Brady Rice, and I go back to my days in high school as a junior, we had 2 pitchers by the names of Alexander Zeski and Nate Rennick, and those 2 guys could go back and forth. One throw 100 one day, the other throw 100 the next game. And it allowed you to shorten your bullpen and have 2 guys consistently, Nick. Cray and Rice could help Mercyhurst Prep in a long run here in 2A. They're built for it, I really believe.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I'm not going to attack on anything because you said everything that I would have said too. That type of depth is what's going to, I think, carry them really far into the state tournament. We've talked about these guys all year. They're an incredible team. They have depth, they have youth, they have pitching, they have hitting. They're going to be a deadly team through states.
Yeah, Riverview is going to be the team that Mercyhurst Prep is going to play based on the Whippeal bracket, who ended up beating Laurel earlier today at Ross Memorial Park 2-0. So Mercyhurst Prep, again, we don't do bets in high school, but you'd like their chances in that game, especially knowing that Hunter Cray and Brady Rice are going to both be available because you get nearly a week off to prepare. So
Yeah.
Mercyhurst Prep's in a really good spot, and so is Titusville, and I think Cathedral Prep is too because it is Cathedral Prep. How about Cambridge Springs, Nick? The second seed, which I still can't really understand in their District 10 bracket, and they roll over West Middlesex. They got an offensive firepower again, and they also are a team which has plenty of power and a dominant pitcher in the circle in Kayla Crawford. I think that their chances of making it good in states, I think, have a really good opportunity as well.
No, I agree. I mean, Cambridge Springs softball is having a great year this year as well. So I will echo everything that you said. And Kayla Crawford, I think it starts with Kaylin Crawford, who's only a junior, by the way, threw 167 strikeouts this year. Come on. So I think they can have some – when you have a pitcher like that, strong pitching at the high school level, whether it's baseball or softball, in this case it's softball, that can carry you pretty far. That can cover up some maybe holes you have in the lineup. Again, not saying Cambridge Springs has holes in the lineup, but all, more just giving flowers to Kayla Crawford.
And now the game that, to both of us, I think for me it was the one that I was most excited about on Monday. It was the one that I told everybody, be warned, this game will be much closer than what the last regular season matchup was.
I know where you're going.
I will tell you this, and I have watched these two teams play a lot, both against each other and against other quality opponents in the last 3 years. I watched Tim Caputo and Harbor Creek win a state championship last season in a game in a finish of the season that included 2 multiple-run comebacks in the late innings, in the quarters, and the semifinals, and a walk-off in the bottom of the 9th to beat Juniata in the state championship. The Stones from Fort LaBeouf to play the way that they did on Monday and come away with a victory against a Harbor Creek offense that had been crushing everybody in the batter's box. What a shout-out to Coach Litz and this Fort LaBeouf team. They, to me, are my top-performing team of the week. That was not an easy game.
No.
Third time against Harbor Creek. You are clearly, from the last couple of years, not the team that is supposed to win this game. And yet, they do it in a way that Fort LaBeouf recently isn't used to doing it. And it's with defense, it's with pitching, and it's with timely hitting. And the Bison are moving on to states. Nick, what a game this was, and what a win for the Bison.
How many times do we say it is so hard to beat a team 3 times in a season? Whether it's softball in this case, basketball, football, whatever it is so hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. And sure. I think that's what you saw. I think Fort LaBeouf, not that Harbor Creek didn't want this, because of course they did. That's silly to say that. But Fort LaBeouf, that fired them a little more, right? There's something to be said for that underdog mentality. And when you lose to a team twice in a season, you're coming in as an underdog. Kieran Skelton throws 7 strikeouts, no earned runs, and then also threw in a leadoff double that really kind of sparked the winning run over Harbor Creek. Like, when you can perform at that level, you're going to fire your team up, and that one little hit, that one little double that can spark that run in baseball can be game sealing.
I think, this to me goes to show, and Fort LaBeouf's got a really storied tradition of being able to recount the past and also not dwell on it too much. And, I look back to the basketball season and some of the rivalries that took place. You look at specifically, Mercyhurst Prep Northwestern, and we questioned, when they got to the championship game in the playoffs, would the Lakers be able to, with the coaching staff that they had, understand what Northwestern was capable of and at least limit Michaela Presser-Palmer? You ask that same question even, back to last year when Franklin and Girard in boys basketball played in the District 10 championship game. Could Franklin then overcome the mistakes that they made to win in the state semifinal? And they did. This, though, game for me, Nick, and you talk about a team, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. I understand that. But Harbor Creek is not a fundamentally off-the-rails squad.
No,
they are
100%.
very, very good at what they do. And so I thought coming into this game, the reason I still gave the edge to Harbor Creek is because I didn't think in a pressure situation, and I'm not even saying they did, I just didn't think that they would be confident and satisfied with the 2 wins they had over Fort LaBeouf this season. And so that's why, to me, this win for the Bison is more impressive. And also, too, I really believed that if Fort LaBeouf was going to win this game, they're going to have to rack up runs and win a 10-9, 11-10 sort of game.
Yeah.
And the fact that that didn't happen, and again, you mentioned Kieran Skelton. She's been great in the circle now for a couple of seasons. They are this is a win to be commended. And however far they go in the state tournament, which it may only be 1 game, unfortunately, because of the way the WPL brackets work and there are upsets all the time, they're going to get Elizabeth Forward, who came into this season virtually losing nothing. They were the 1 seed out of the WPL tournament, won their first game 23-2, and ended up falling into Blackhawk. So who knows? But regardless, for the Bison, this is a season that I think could be an even further launching point now, given the fact that they know they can beat Harbor Creek and they know they can be the top team in their 4A class for at least the next year, given the fact that we're on a 2-year cycle here.
If they can play defense like that, absolutely. Harbor Creek puts up 9.8 runs a game, and they held them to 1. If you can play that kind of defense through state playoffs, I agree.
Yeah, so what a job, first of all, by this Fort LaBeouf team, and from everybody, as you mentioned, Nick, even on Tuesday with McDowell. Baseball moving on. Softball wasn't Gabby DeLuca's fault. That was a question. They played an unbelievable defensive game against State College, couldn't get it done in extra innings. But I will say, for all of our games on Monday, District 10 Championship Monday for baseball, softball is one of my favorite days of the year, just because it is the typical traditional Memorial Day 8-game extravaganza with the 1A through 4A championships. The one thing I will say, and maybe this is just the fan in me coming out, and I know this is something the District 10 committee are going to have to discuss and deliberate, and we're not in that room, and I know the people that are in that room may not want to hear this. I really think there should be a conversation to having the District 10 championship games for baseball and softball be all at one site. Whether that means you rotate them each year, so maybe 1 year to make it fair, okay, you play them at Erie, at UPMC Park if the Seawolves aren't home. If they are at home, maybe you go ask Barron. Do you ask Mercyhurst? Do you ask McDowell now with their turf field? For softball, well, clearly Slippery Rock is an incredible venue. You could go down there 1 year, and then you could play it up at Barron. You could rotate between those two. Baseball's got Slippery Rock as well. I just feel like for the fan, and the WPL does this, and they do a great job of it at what used to be Wild Things Park with the Washington Wild Things, is have it where you start the day with baseball, and you sit back and you end the day with baseball.
Yeah.
And I just think there are too many great venues around here and too many great games to not have that conversation with putting all these games at one location.
No, I agree. And I think the more you can make it a spectacle, the more people will show up, the better the games are going to be, the better the crowds are going to be. I think it's a win-win.
All right, state playoffs. Time for the next round of these District 10 teams, and that's going to start next week. We can't wait to see all these teams. We're going to be following along. Best of luck. Going to be a lot of fun to see who wins, who doesn't, and the seasons that continue on in District 10. We're lucky to be talking about these teams. Hey, speaking of talking about great things, we're going to talk about Rebich Investments because we love to do that because they're such a great partner at what they do, both with our podcast and with financial guidance. Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more info, head to their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number during normal business hours. Not now, but during normal business hours, 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. All right, part 2 of the show. Baseball, softball talk will resume next week. But, Nick, it is OTA season. and nobody applauds.
We do. Paul Adamczak right now is pumped. He's a little under the weather tonight. He started jumping up and down on his bed when he heard that.
Paul is excited. They call this the non-playing season in the NFL. Of course, we still have stories about, right? We don't know if, when, how Aaron Rodgers is going to announce he's going to Pittsburgh. I hope he doesn't, but that's another story for another day. But we thought it would be a fun exercise because, the offseason for football is way too long. At some point, they're going to switch to a 25-game season and have a 6 or 7 month calendar or an 8-month calendar, and we're always going to have football. But that time is not now. So what we're doing tonight is we're doing our first of 2 playoff predictions. We're starting at OTAs. That is, of course, when players can or can choose not to come and practice and do some voluntary workouts and all that fun stuff. Or you can be like Aaron Rodgers and just head to Austin and do a podcast tour over the Memorial Day weekend. Regardless, this is our first of 2, Nick, and we're going to do this now. We're going to do this at the start of the season. So tonight, we're going to predict our division winners. We're going to predict our wild card teams, and then we are going to tell you whether the Steelers, Bills, or Browns are making the playoffs, and if they don't, what their record will be and how they will fare. So I will yield the floor, Nick, first to you. Let's start in the NFC because, of course, that's the conference that we don't necessarily care much about. Give us your division winner. We'll start in the East, where the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles are. Who do you have in the East division here, Nick?
I have those defending Super Bowl championship Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are an enigma to me because I don't think there is a better run team than the Philadelphia Eagles. From ownership down through, they just gave head coach Nick Sirianni an extension, well-deserved. The guy's a little weird, but all he does is win, right? So I am going in the East. I'm going with the defending Super Bowl championships. I mean, you lost Zach Bond, and there's some stuff about the defense that's a little worrisome to me, but run it back with Hurts, Saquon, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and another year of the tush push. I think they're going to have the edge for a long time. And they just keep drafting players. They had another guy fall to them in the draft. Like, this defense is just going to be better and better and better this year. So I'm not going to bet against the Eagles until they show me I have to.
I love the post that they had as soon as the rule got knocked down with push on, with Jalen Hurts and whatnot.
They put together like a 2-minute reel of every tush push touchdown and just posted it and left it. Like, just didn't do anything else.
You know what would be one of the coolest jobs in our industry in the world? Would be to be the social media and digital content manager for the defending Super Bowl champions. You can post whatever the hell you want, and nobody's going to be upset with you.
Nope. And nobody can do anything about it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm also going to take the Eagles in the East. The scary thing for me is I don't even think Nick Sirianni's that good of a coach, and look how good they are. I mean, could you imagine what they would be with a Kyle Shanahan, a Sean McVay,
Sure.
somebody who's more of a steady hand.
See, but here's why I like him. I'm going to push back just a little bit because I think the reason Nick Sirianni works is the same reason a guy like Mike Tomlin and the same reason a guy like Dan Campbell up in Detroit work. Because they are coaches that are just there to coach. They're there to lead the team. Players coaches, right? They're there to lead the team, motivate, be there for the guys. He lets his offensive coordinator coach the offense. He's got one of the best defensive coordinators in Vic Fangio. So he lets his coordinators play or do their job, and he can just focus on being a head coach and focusing on that. I agree. He's not a strategist. He's not particularly great at clock management, but he's really good at running a team and letting his staff do what they do best. And I think that really works for him. But you're right. He's not to the level of like a McVay or, somebody like that.
Well, the other biggest part, too, is he has Howie Roseman in that front office who nearly hit on every single draft pick, so you never have to look over your shoulder and worrying about who am I going to have on my roster this year because it's going to be someone great.
Yeah.
All right, we're all in on the Eagles in the East. Let's go to the North. I'll start here. This is a really wonky division for me to predict. I'm not buying the Chicago hype. I do not see a scenario where Caleb Williams can take that big of a leap, even with Ben Johnson as his new head coach. And I think for the Vikings, as good as their roster is, a rookie quarterback or at least a first-year quarterback, it's really hard to really be successful in.
Yep.
I'm going to go on a limb here, and I think something has to be said with the Lions and losing both coordinators. I think Dan Campbell's an excellent coach, but Aaron Glenn got the Jets job for a reason. Ben Johnson was getting phone calls probably for the last 2 or 3 years for head coaching jobs for a reason. And I think that there's going to be some part of the Lions, whether it's Jared Goff, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's Aiden Hutchinson on defense, who does not look incredibly healthy for some videos that you've seen with him. I'm going to take Green Bay to win this division. They really didn't lose anybody from last season. They're still extremely young. Jordan Love has proven he can be a great quarterback. And Matt LaFleur, to me, is a top 5 coach that never gets talked about. So I will take a bit of a risk here. I will roll the dice and pick Green Bay to win the NFC North close. And I think this could come down to the last day, Nick, to determine who wins this division.
Oh, I agree. I really like the pick, and I had a hard time with this one. And I'm not going to recap what you said because the Bears, they're not there. They need a couple years to get there. Minnesota, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or Sam Howell, I like that team, but I don't think it's enough to win the division. So I had to look at same thing, Detroit and Green Bay. And I love everything you said. I think Green Bay is still a year away. I do worry about the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator switch in Detroit. I do like that there's familiarity with the team. New offensive coordinator John Morton was a former offensive assistant, so he knows it. Kelvin Shepard was a promotion, so they still kind of know the system that Dan Campbell wants to run. Of course, there's going to be changes. There's always changes. So then when I have those kind of worries on both sides, both teams, I go to the team. And I think the better overall team, at least on paper right now at OTAs, is the Detroit Lions. Goff is a good enough quarterback. Jamison Williams is getting healthier and smarter. Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best wide receivers in the league. You hope that Aiden Hutchinson can come back and be what he was before he had gotten taken off. I like the addition of DJ Reed at cornerback because their secondary has been a little suspect. So I think they did the right things this offense. As far as a team, they didn't lose much, but I agree the coaching maybe makes them make a step back, but Green Bay's defense is just it's lacking. So I think you're right. I think it comes down to that last game for one of them to end up winning the division.
All right, to the south. Take your pick. I've got the Bucs winning it again. I don't really have a lot of explanation behind this.
I was gonna say thanks for giving me like the worst division. I'm like, oh, do I have to pick? Does somebody have to win the division when I look at the NFC South?
They're more consistent than the other teams. That's about all I got.
That's fair. But I actually had some fun with this one because the Saints, Panthers, forget about it. But so I like the Bucs. I like Baker. But the loss of Liam Cohen is a big deal. Moving on, he moves on to be the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm a sneaky fan of Michael Penix. I made fun of the pick when the Falcons drafted him. You watch him in those last few games. He performed well under pressure. I love that offense. I really like Drake London. I think he's one of the most underrated wide receivers. And then I loved their draft. I thought they did a lot to really shore up that defensive side of the ball, picking up both Jalen Walker and Xavier Watts. I think James Pierce will slide in at right outside linebacker, really spell with Leonard Floyd. So I think they did a lot to really bolster their defense, which was really hurting them. So give me some Drake London, give me some Kyle Pitts, and then, Bijan Robinson. Give him the ball 30 times a game, and you're going to win the game.
I expect you now in fantasy football drafts to take Kyle Pitts since you're so high on him.
I will, because he'll finally fall to like the 10th round where I'll pick him.
I want to be in your league because that means I'm not getting last. Thank goodness for that. That guy hasn't got a touchdown since my son's been born. He's going to turn 3 in 2 weeks.
I feel like you drafted him in fantasy and got burned.
Well, my players always get injured weeks 1 and 2, but
there you go.
I can't control that.
Oh, then I'll definitely be in a league with you.
All right, to the West. Maybe the most interesting division because of how it ended last year. Nick, who do you have winning the NFC West as of May 28th in OTAs?
I went back and forth with this because I really bought into the 49ers last year. They were another pick for me that bombed. So that did not go well for me. I thought about picking them again, but there's just too many question marks on both sides of the ball there in San Francisco. Arizona, that offense is ugly to me. Yeah. Seattle was very interesting. I don't like that they got rid of DK Metcalf. I don't necessarily think that Jackson Smith-Njigba is ready to be that wide receiver 1. So that really kind of by default left me with the LA Rams. I'm never going to bet against Sean McVay. I love the addition of Devontae Adams because I don't think he has to be the guy. I think he can kind of split time with Puka Nacua. Kyron Williams is a sneaky good back, and Matt Stafford. I mean, he's coming back for another year, I think he's going to want to go out on top. So I really like the offense. Their defense is going to take another step forward. Man, Sean McVay, that guy can make a great team out of a JUCO team.
Well, and I think the other nice thing for the Rams is, by history, they tend to trade away first-round picks. I think you could see this team by the trade deadline. They've got something cooking. Get rid of those first-round picks and get somebody that could really make your team a Super Bowl contender. I've got the Rams, too.
Yeah.
I think Arizona will be a lot better than what people realize. Kyler Murray, to me, is still a pretty good quarterback. But I just think you talk about weapons, and the head coaching battle really makes a lot for me. San Francisco will be intriguing because now what do you do post-cheap Brock Purdy, I think, is the big question that you have with him getting re-signed. So I'll take the Rams, too. Then we go to our wild cards, Nick. You've got 3 teams to pick from for your wild cards for the NFC. What say you?
Commanders lead that selection for me. I mean, I think they really bolstered their offensive line, which will really help that offense. You go and you end up trading for, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name, the wide receiver from San Francisco.
Oh, Debo.
Yeah, they trade for Debo Samuel. So now you have a 1-2 punch with Debo and Terry McLaurin. Jaden Daniels is going to take that step forward. And then you go out and you bolster the defense. You go out and sign Javon Kinlaw, Jonathan Jones at your nickelback, and then Trey Amos is a great cornerback pick in the draft. So I'm going Commanders. My second is the Packers because of I'm not going to rehash that. Everything you just said, I still think they sneak in the wild card. And then I am going with the 49ers. I just can't quit it. I think they're going to bounce back. I do like Brock Purdy. Their talks of getting rid of Brandon Ayuk. He's still technically injured, but I really like Ricky Pearsall. I think he'll catch anything that's thrown to him. Christian McCaffrey's going to have a bounce back year, and they still have a good defense. I mean, you still have Nick Bosa there. Mykal Williams was a great draft pick for them. And if they could figure out the defensive secondary, I think they could slide in into a wild card spot.
Man, if you're San Francisco, how much would you have loved to have traded Debo for a second-round pick to Pittsburgh last year? That trade looking better and better now. That Pittsburgh passed on it now as you look to this season. All right, I'm going to go with 2 that are expected and 1 that's a little bit off the radar. I'm going to take the Commanders, too. I think Jaden Daniels is a bona fide superstar, and even if he regresses to what C.J. Stroud was in year 2, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. They're too damn talented all over, to your point. I'll take the Lions in a wild card, although I'm a little concerned. Again, this is the team where if I am picking one in the NFC that I would not be shocked to see regress tremendously, it would be them. So I will take the Lions to make the wild card, but I'm timid. I'm going to go off the wall with my last wild card pick. I think a lot of you are going to laugh at this, but I really like what Arizona's doing, man.
Okay.
I think with being able to have a fully healthy Kyler Murray, that defensive line has gotten a lot better, and their secondary has as well. I think when you look at the way the Cardinals are starting to stack some of their guys, they have players in key positions. And again, remember, Marvin Harrison Jr. flew under the radar last year and still was a strong rookie wide receiver. So I will take the Cardinals as my final wild card team, leaving the Niners out, the Seahawks out, Atlanta out as some playoff teams. I also, too, leave Minnesota, Chicago out of the picture as well. So there you go. It's only May 28th, so don't grill us too hard on FC fans. But there we go. There are way too early playoff predictions. We'll see who all gets hurt on day number 1. Let's go to the AFC, Nick, and we're going to start with the 2 divisions that don't have any of our teams. Let's go to the West. Chiefs are the defending champs. Everyone thinks the Chargers are going to unseat them in 2025. What say you?
I was really tempted to pull the Chargers. I'm a big Justin Herbert stan. I really am. And I think that they're able to pull some of the, they really showed signs of stepping forward. It had not been that great of an offense. Herbert had looked uncomfortable, insert John Harbaugh, and they're looking pretty consistent, right? So then you draft Ladd McConkey last year. He's got a great kind of I was going to say number 1, but he's really kind of still in the flex. You maybe swing and miss on Quentin Johnston. He's not your number 1 pick, but you go out and you re-sign Mike Williams, who's familiar, and you draft Trey Harris. That's a 4-pack of receivers that I can get behind. Rashawn Slater is one of the best offensive tackles in the league. They went and signed Mekhi Becton to boost up that offensive line, and Amari Hampton is a stud. This offense is going to be humming, and then the 1-2 punch with Najee Harris. Not to mention, you go to the other side of the ball, and yes, they lose Joey Bosa, but surprise, surprise, Joey Bosa's already hurt. But you replace him with Deshaun Hand from Miami. I like that pickup. You still have Khalil Mack, who can still be disruptive. And as a Pittsburgh fan, I was sad to see Dante Jackson go. He's a great cornerback, so they shored up the back end of their defense as well. So I do think they take a step forward. Maybe I'm giving away my wild card pick. However, the Chiefs, man, I can't bet against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. You still have him leading an offense featuring Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice, you figure, will come back. I like the addition of Jalen Royals. Hollywood Brown will step back in. Pacheco will be healthy. And then they anchor that defense with Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie. So I can't find a hole in the Chiefs, so I'm going to give them the division.
I don't really know anybody really feels like the Chiefs aren't going to win this division. I feel like this is more of a May farce to try to get clicks. And I will
agree.
not be a pawn in this game with the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. There are some things that we try to do to make sure you interact with us. This ain't one of them. Kansas City wins this division going away. They had, you could argue, probably the worst year that they've had. We say that every single regular season. They still win the division by 4 games. Was the total they won the division by. And remember, it probably would have been 5 because they sat their starters against Denver at the end of the season. I don't care how old Travis Kelce's getting. I don't care that they have to potentially have a rookie playing on the offensive line and Josh Simmons, their first-round pick. I don't care. Patrick Mahomes is still too talented. I think Royals is going to be the one receiver that you don't hear about that will end up being a superstar because he's going to be able to play with guys like Xavier Worthy in the field. I've got the Chiefs winning the AFC West. I'll start in the AFC South. I really wanted to pick Indianapolis partially because I feel like Tyler Warren's going to single-handedly set the single-season record for receiving touchdowns from a tight end. But I don't know who the heck their quarterback is going to be, so I'm not going to go that route. I think Tennessee will be better. I think Cam Ward can be a guy who could be a quick spark plug. And again, they have some offensive pieces, I think, with Tennessee. But I'm going to continue to go with Houston here as the safe pick. Again, a down year still won them 10 games. I think the biggest thing, even now minus Stephon Diggs, is that if you can get Tank Dell back healthy, and Nico Collins, for that matter, back healthy as well, this is, I think, a team with a good enough offensive pieces. And remember, the defense is still relatively young. I like Houston here, Nick, to win the AFC South.
So I like the pick, and they were somebody that I considered as well. I am going with Indianapolis. However, it's because Shane Steichen will draw up a ton of packages for athletic quarterback Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones wins this. I mean, I really wanted Anthony. I do. I really wanted Anthony Richardson to work. It's not going to work. So I think they went out and got Daniel Jones on purpose. I think Shane Steichen sold it to him that it's going to be a quarterback battle. Anthony Richardson is a stud athlete. Move him to tight end. Put him opposite of Tyler Warren and go. Put Daniel Jones. He can do that run pass option. Daniel Jones. You know, I was not a fan of in New York. I don't know why I'm buying into him right now. I think it's more of a love for Shane Steichen, but you saw what Shane Steichen was able to do with Jalen Hurts. I think he can replicate that with Daniel Jones. I agree. I think Tyler Warren is going to smash that record. I like Michael Pittman. Josh Downs is there. Addie Mitchell is still there. I think the offensive line, the offensive and defensive line of the Colts may be one of the best offensive and defensive line pairings in the league. They go out, they shore up the secondary, which had been hurting with Charvarius Ward and Cam Byam. That's awesome. And you still have that defensive stout in the middle. So I'm buying in, but I do think it's because Daniel Jones wins the job in training camp.
Well, I mean, I think he's going to eventually get the job. It's just a matter of whether Richardson gets hurt in week 1, 2, or 3. I mean, that I don't see he's going to start. I think you have to still ride with the guy who you drafted really high a few years back. Give him a chance. But it'll be interesting. I mean, if Richardson or Jones can hit their guys, they do have some depth at receiver. But South is just another one of those weird divisions. All right, it's not a weird division, Nick. I don't think we have to spend any time on this. You're not going to pick anyone besides Buffalo to win the East, right?
I mean, no, I'm not. Not at all. The Bills are just too good. Reigning MVP Josh Allen just coming off a season where he threw had 4,269 total yards and 41 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, didn't lose anything on offense. I think they run it back absolutely, and they shored up that defense, which will really help them take the East.
Yeah, I mean, again, someone really made a good point, and I don't remember who I was talking to when I was still covering the Bills a few months back, but they said, look, Josh Allen's at a point in his career, kind of like where Mahomes is at, maybe was a year or two ago, where you don't need a superstar wide receiver because you have a guy who can make all the plays. He's smart enough. He can see the field. He can break tackles. You don't have to have a Stephon Diggs on your team to be great. I think Keon Coleman would be good enough. I still think Dalton Kincaid is going to be a superstar, although he didn't show it much last year. And I mean, look, this team could win 10 games and still win the East. New England, while they may be somewhat improved, is not going to be nearly as good. The Jets are a tire fire in Miami. Shout out to Paul here. I think Paul would rather be the head coach than Mike than the guy they currently have there. So, Bills to win the AFC East, and I don't foreshadow any of us have some wild card teams coming from the East as well. But that is another conversation for a minute down the road. We finish up with the North, Nick Artman. May 28th, 2025. We make this pick, still not knowing who's Pittsburgh's quarterback. Who do you have winning the AFC North as of today?
I got to go with my guy, Wayne Bradford. We're going Baltimore, baby. I tried to be fun with the Browns last year, and they let me down. The Steelers are not there. The Bengals are going to be a close second, but that the Ravens just got better. You go out, you sign DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, he's not the quarterback or the wide receiver one that he used to be, but you pair him on the outside with with Bateman and put Zay Flowers in the slot and Mark Andrews and just give the ball to Derrick Henry. That offense is going to be insane. They shore up the the pass rush again in the draft. They have one of the best safeties in the draft fall to them. So I think the Ravens are going to run away with the North in this one.
I wouldn't say they're going to run away with the North, but I like what you're thinking. What was interesting to me for Cincinnati, I thought they had a real chance to be a division contender if they would have drafted on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah.
Amarius Mims is a good pick in the value from where you got him at, but the majority of what they went with here, they get Chris Jenkins in round 2, but I didn't understand their draft a lot. And as long as this Trey Hendrickson cloud is hanging over their head, the thing with Cincinnati is this. They're going to go on a 7-game win streak to end the season. They just might be 5 games under 500 when they start that 7-game win streak. We know that they're not going to start the season off on the right foot, and it may take 11 or 12 games to be able to win this division. I do think that it's probably going to be the same standings as last year with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati flipping, but I would take Baltimore too. To me, they're the team that nobody can beat until they get to play Buffalo or Kansas City, and I think that that's going to stay the same. I don't foresee anything happening at this point. So, I'll take the Ravens to win the North, and it's a sad pick because it's the same team, but that's who I would pick as of this current moment in time, Nick Artman. And now we get to our wildcard picks for the AFC, which 2 years ago you'd have been spoiled for choice. Now this year I'm trying to decide which teams I want in. I don't know if I want any teams in, really, but go ahead and give me your 3 wildcard teams.
So I will go with the Bengals. I agree with you. They did draft Shamar Stewart in the first round, but I don't know if that's going to pair with Trey Hendrickson, or what are you doing with Trey Hendrickson? But Shamar Stewart is already not at OTA, so you already have a problem. Rookie first-round pick, he wants – there's some clause in his contract that he doesn't want that could potentially default the current year contract or remaining year. So your first-round pick's not even at OTAs. That already kind of spells trouble for me. However, it's a weak AFC North. Burrow and that offense, they're going to put up 50 points a game, so I like the Bengals. Obviously, I talked up the Chargers. I'm not going to do it again. They're going to be my wild card. And honestly, I'm dipping back into the West. The Denver Broncos, I think, are going to sneak in. I really liked what I saw out of that offense last year. Put another year of Sean Payton in, and I just think that their number 1 defense in the league last year, if not top 3. So I really like what they were putting together, and I'm going to buy into Bo Nix a little bit in year 2.
Yeah, and apologies. I was looking at last year's draft with Amarius Mims and Shamar Stewart. I still don't think it's going to make that much of a difference for Cincinnati.
I agree.
So I just talked about the Bengals being a potential division winner and competing for a wild card spot. I do not think, though, that they will end up making the playoffs crazy enough.
Oh, I like it.
Because, and you call me a homer, call me what you want, until I see Mike Tomlin with a losing record, this team will be in the playoffs, whether they want to be or not. So I don't know who their quarterback's going to be. I assume it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. It might be Kirk Cousins. They're going to find a way to make the playoffs for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to lose by 30, I think, in the first round, whoever they play. But it's one of those things where, Nick, until I see otherwise, I can't. History repeats itself, and I really, truly believe that with Pittsburgh, even though I do not think they have the roster or the makeup or, quite frankly, the mindset at this point in time to make the postseason. I like Denver, too. I think they're also a playoff team. I would take the Broncos to make the playoffs yet again, and I'm not going to go with the LA Chargers. I actually think that, if you can believe this or not, they're going to take a bit of a step back. And I think that, Jim Harbaugh, as good of a head coach as he is, that
all he does is win.
Really, really tough. Right.
All he does is win.
But their receiving core still just doesn't impress me that much. And I don't know if Justin Herbert's a top 10 quarterback. I know that sounds crazy to think about.
Blasphemy.
He is efficient, but you know what he's not is he's not clutch. We can talk about that for ages. So I will go Pittsburgh. I will go Denver. And I'm going to go off the board, and I'm actually going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars to make the playoffs.
I'd rather have Did you see this? I should have went and found it while you were hemming and hawing. Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence have roughly the same statistics in their career so far.
Well, you know what? I'm not even saying this based off of Travis Hunter. I'm not. I think there's enough offensive firepower on this team to be able to at least make some noise. And have you seen their schedule?
Oh, no,
I mean, the front half of their schedule is a little bit difficult, but then after November 9th, you get Houston, the Chargers, and then it's Arizona, Tennessee, Indianapolis, the Jets, Broncos, Colts, and Titans. I mean, you could win 7 or 8 straight games based off of that schedule. So I don't know. Maybe it's a dumb pick, but I just think with how weak the division is, Travis Hunter plays a role. Trevor Lawrence at some point is going to have to break out of something. Liam Cohen, I think, can draw up some good things for the offense. Yeah. So they're my sleeper team this year.
I like it.
And you got to have some variety in the postseason because not every team makes it back. So I'll go the Jaguars, and you all can laugh at me. And we will be making these predictions again at the beginning of the season when we do our NFL Extravaganza preview show, Nick. So something to talk about. It's, the Aaron Rodgers story still hangs over Pittsburgh, but I just really don't feel like there's a lot right now in NFL news, even with the Rodgers saga, because it's kind of dried up at this point.
I'm over it. At this point, I think it was I don't remember if it was Mike Florio or from Pro Football Talk or if it was Terry Bradshaw, but it was like, what are we doing here? Just close the door.
Right.
I think Terry Bradshaw called it a joke, just like move on. And I think I'm there. If this was 4 years ago, I'm excited by this. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the key for the Steelers to win the Super Bowl this year.
No.
I love what you said on Monday in terms of bringing in Kirk Cousins. I think that would be a great move. For some reason, Atlanta seems to be holding still, or maybe they're not getting offers. I don't know. But if it is Mason Rudolph, and I made my predictions based off of who's there right now, I do think this ends up being Tomlin's first losing season. But I agree. I'm over the Rodgers stuff. Let's move on. Close the book. Let's get to training camp. Forget about it.
Yeah, and let's just ride with Mason if we're going to ride with Mason, because it seems like more and more so that's what the answer is going to be. Or you could just get Kirk Cousins and win 10 or 11 games and be competitive in a playoff game. It's up to you. I don't run the team. I don't get paid, but that's what I would do. That's just my call. But hey, we want to thank you all for being with us tonight. This has been a fun episode. Congratulations again to all the District 10 baseball, softball, and lacrosse teams that are moving on to the state playoffs. We didn't get to lacrosse, but we'll be following them as well. Really great stuff as we get to June. Make sure to continue to follow us. Our next broadcast coming up Monday, 9 a.m. for Flagship City Sports Talk, Nick. And then we hit June. Hard to believe already. Hopefully the weather's a little bit better. I got to get out on the golf course at some point.
Let me know. I'm ready.
Hey, I'm all in. We have a Gem City Sports Network golf tournament.
I like it.
I think Paul would probably win that.
I don't know if Paul plays golf. We'll have to ask him on Monday. I definitely wouldn't. I'm the guy that brings a box of balls for every time I go out because I'm going to lose them.
Quick funny story. So my stepdad gifted me, I don't know if it was my stepdad or my in-laws, gifted me this huge pack of, I think it was like 36 sleeves of golf balls.
Yeah.
And they were like, this will help get you through the year. I said, I'm lucky if I make it to July with these. Are you kidding me?
Seriously. I went over to Culbertson for the first time last year, and it's like hole 7 or something like that. There's a little pond before the green. Yeah. I was determined to chip over that pond. I lost at least 2 sleeves into the pond that day. Almost lost my pitching wedge because I was ticked off.
You know what we are? We're just the good Samaritans who hit it into the woods so much. We want other players who need extra golf balls to be able to find them for free. We're actually doing all of you at home a favor.
It works out in my favor, though. So our neighbors across the street back up against one of the holes at Culbertson Hills.
Yeah.
So they go over to my daughter goes over to my neighbor's backyard, and they grab all the golf balls. So I'm set for the year.
We did that, too. My parents' house was around Nick's place and the Sun Hugh Golf driving range, and we would do that, too. So,
Yep.
Hey, enjoy your weekend if you get a chance to be out in the nice weather. We'll see you all back on Monday, everybody, with Flagship City Sports Talk. This is the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. Follow us on socials. Make sure to like, subscribe. See you all Monday, everybody. Take care.